All right, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Master Reviewer back again with another review, and today we are doing a review for Thor. That is right, this is the next Marvel film that I am reviewing, and it is another pseudo rewatch for me. Again, we're still in like the era of Marvel films, the earlier ones that I do not completely remember a lot of the details because I watched them when I was really young. And yeah, this film is like 15 years old by now, so that is interesting to think about. So yeah, anyway, let us just begin, starting off with the plot. So the plot of the film is that there is peace between the Asgardians and the Frost Giants, brought about by Odin. Odin, the king of Asgard, he has like brought peace between the Frost Giants and the Asgardians. Everything is good and stuff. And he has two sons, Thor and Loki, who both dream to one day become king. I think actually later on in the film, it's just like we find out that Loki never actually cared about becoming king. He just wanted to be viewed as Thor's equal, and he wants to gain the respect of his father. So so Loki is jealous of Thor. There's like a time skip. After we see them as kids, we see them as they're older, and so Thor, it's like his, I guess, coronation day. He is about to become king of Asgard, but at the time, exactly at that moment, there are three frost giants that end up sneaking into the vault of Asgard, or just the vault area basically, and try to steal the casket. I think it's called the casket of Eternal Winter, something like that. So they try to steal it, and then they are killed by the Destroyer, which is this giant robot thingy that guards the vaults. So yeah, this causes Thor to very much want to go to war with the Frost Giants, and yeah, so he ends up convincing his friends, like he's got some like other warrior friends that end up going along with him. Loki kind of also like helps to manipulate Thor into going the direction of war, and so Thor and his friends and Loki, they all go to Jotunheim, which is the home of the Frost Giants, in order to start a war, basically. Well, not start a war, but they want kind of like revenge for the attack. Like Odin tells Thor, it's like, do not try to provoke a war. It's like this was just a mistake of like three lone soldiers or whatever. It's like this was not meant to, like, we're not going to start a war over this. But Thor, just being very much like he wants to, his whole motive is like he wants to be like his father, who fought the war against the Frost Giants many years ago. So Thor kind of wants to like prove himself as a warrior. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Thor, he ends up fighting off a bunch of Frost Giants. His friend gets hurt. Eventually, Odin does show up and stops everything from going down, basically asking Laufey, the leader of the Frost Giants, hey, can we, like, let's just end this right here and now. Let's not start a war over this, over the actions of like a stupid like boy, basically. And so, but Laufey does not agree. He says no, we're going to war over this. So Odin takes all of the Asgardians back with him, and so yeah, later on it's revealed that Loki, he was the one that, for one, later on, okay, I'm gonna kind of explain this not non-linearly because we only find this information out towards the end, but it's revealed that Loki was the one that actually let in the Frost Giants into the vault in order to like ruin Thor's coronation. Basically, he also told Heimdall's like the one that guards the Bifrost, which is the rainbow bridge between Asgard and like the other 9 realms, basically. So he told Heimdall to tell Odin that they were going to Jotunheim so that Odin would step in and save them, basically. So anyway, after the events of Thor basically starting a war, Thor ends up getting his powers taken by Odin. He ends up getting banished to Earth. And from this point, the rest of the film basically is just Thor. He ends up meeting these 3 scientists, Jane, Darcy, and Eric. They are this team of scientists, I think particle physicists, something like that, where they are investigating strange phenomenon that are going on with the sky and stuff, these auroras, and it leads to them discovering Thor and eventually also Thor's hammer and stuff. So a lot of the film is them just kind of trying to help out Thor with him. Thor himself is like kind of trying to navigate, I think, Earth. And eventually he does like find out about his hammer that is also there. He tries to go retrieve his hammer. He manages to fight off a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who have taken over the site basically to study the hammer. And eventually he gets the hammer, but then he does not manage to pick it up because he is no longer worthy of it after just basically starting a war and being selfish and all that. So Thor kind of loses all hope and stuff. He is captured by S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point. Loki arrives to basically tell him that Odin is dead. Basically, Loki throughout the film is just manipulating like the situations to his benefits. And so yeah, at this point in Asgard, Odin, he fell into like an eternal sleep. Loki found out that he is actually also a frost giant. He finds that out by, I think, holding not the Bifrost. For some reason, I think the Bifrost is the name of the bridge, but I always thought like, okay, it seems like it would be a more fitting name for the casket of Eternal Winters, because I know frost, and so it just makes me like I have like this correlation which isn't correct between the two. So Anyway, yeah, Loki finds out that he is part frost giant, and so he ends up. So yeah, for some reason, he confronts Odin about it. Odin falls into like a sleep of some sort, which I'm sure is probably explainable based on Norse mythology. But yeah, so Odin is like in a coma of some sort, and Loki now basically takes over Asgard, becoming the king, the ruler, basically. And so he goes to Earth, basically visiting Earth, basically telling Thor that he can't return to Asgard because Odin died. He is now the ruler, and he made peace between the frost giants in order, but it's like based on the fact that Thor has to stay banished, basically. So yeah, then after that, what happens? Let's see here. I'm just getting a bit distracted because the dogs are barking, and screw it. I said in one of my previous reviews that if the dogs start barking, I have a new protocol to just immediately shut the windows to not deal with the BS, so I'm going to do that real quick. All right, so from this point, Eric ends up showing up. He ends up saving. He comes up with this story about how Thor is like he was like a physicist or a scientist. Anyway, he like ended up, because S.H.I.E.L.D. took away his life work and stuff, he ended up getting really drunk and making like stupid decisions and whatever, and he takes a lot of steroids, which is why he's so strong. So so S.H.I.E.L.D. lets Thor go, basically, because for all intents and purposes, they just think that he's just a dude that has like, I think Agent Coulson, he like thinks that Thor is just some sort of mercenary or something like that. So they don't think of him as too big of a threat, so they let him go. And from there, Thor goes to a bar with Eric. They drink. I think Thor ends up going back to, he bonds a bit with Jane, and then eventually we get to the third act of the film, where Thor's friends, they end up coming back to, Thor's friends end up showing up to Earth, basically, to retrieve Thor. The Destroyer, Loki sends the Destroyer to finish Thor off. Loki also allows the Frost Giants into Asgard in order to fight off. He allows the Frost Giants in, and Laufey, the leader of the Frost Giants, is going to. Loki has a plan to he makes a deal with Laufey, basically saying he will allow Laufey into Asgard. Laufey will kill Odin, and then from there Loki will become ruler. And so yeah, it's like a win-win scenario because Odin dies, that's good for the Frost Giants, and I guess Loki becomes ruler, which is good for him, I guess. But then Loki ends up betraying Laufey by killing him, and so it's revealed that later on we don't get the reveal at this moment, but eventually this is when at the same time Thor is fighting the Destroyer and stuff. Eventually he does kind of stands up to the Destroyer even when he has no powers. He's like still showing bravery in the face of like danger, protecting his friends and all. So he ends up becoming worthy again, so Mjolnir ends up going to Thor. He gets his powers back, he fights the Destroyer, he manages to defeat it, he goes back to Asgard, and he ends up confronting Loki, and then there's like a final kind of fight that goes on between them. Loki's ultimate goal is revealed to be that he wants to be treated as Thor's equal. He wants to prove himself to his father by basically, he also ends up having the same kind of goal that Thor had at the beginning of the film, where he wants to destroy the Frost Giants and all of Jotunheim in order to basically show that he can be like a hero, basically, kind of. So yeah, Loki, he uses the Bifrost in order to, for some reason, I guess the effects of the Bifrost when used, I think too long maybe on, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's a bridge, but for some reason, if it's used on like Jotunheim, maybe specifically on that, or maybe if it's used in a certain way, it can end up like destroying the realm itself. So the Bifrost Loki uses the Bifrost on Jotunheim, and in order to save the day, Thor basically has to destroy the actual Bifrost, break the Rainbow Bridge. But this also means that the Asgardians are stuck there and they can't really travel the realms anymore. So Thor would not be able to go back to Jane. Jane, I didn't really talk about her at all this review, but she is the love interest of Thor, and we'll get to her a bit with the characters. So yeah, the gateway is severed, and Loki and Thor, they're caught in an explosion. At this point, Odin woke up from his coma, and so he ends up going to save Thor and Loki from falling off the Rainbow Bridge. And Loki lets himself go, and there's a post-credit scene where we see that he is on Earth, and that this will lead into the events of the Avengers. And yeah, I think the film kind of ends with, so Jane and Eric and Darcy, I guess their crew is trying to build a way to get back to Thor, and Thor is kind of just speaks with Heimdall. I think basically Heimdall says that there is a, I think there's like a feast or something to celebrate. I think Thor has a small chat with his father, basically saying like, Odin saying like he's proud of him and whatever, and then Thor speaks with Heimdall. Heimdall says like, there's other ways to, the gateway won't be gone forever. Like the Bifrost will there will be ways to get back to Earth, like in the future. Like it's not going to be permanent that they're going to be stuck there. So yeah, kind of a confusing, not confusing, it's pretty straightforward, but I'm just, again, not good at recapping. So overall, the plot, I'm just going to give the plot like a 3 to 5. I think that it is, I guess, it's pretty basic as like I don't know, the middle section where Thor actually loses his powers, it feels like nothing really happens. It feels like at the start, it's like Thor kind of causes a war, and then he loses his powers, and it's like, okay, that stuff is like fine, I guess. But then the middle section is just very much Thor makes it to Earth, he meets like Darcy, Eric, and Jane, and they're like, I kind of wish there was a bit more like shenanigans of him like discovering this new plan and stuff. I feel like they maybe should have leaned into that aspect a bit more. Eventually, it's like the middle. I guess he goes for the hammer, but then after he couldn't retrieve the hammer, eventually it's like that he bonds a bit more with the rest of the crew, and then eventually the destroyer shows up. It just feels like in the middle section, like not a lot really happens besides he tries to go for his hammer, and eventually the destroyer shows up, and then maybe he bonds a bit with like all the members of the science crew. So it was an all right plot. The whole like the political espionage aspects of like, I don't know, the Loki scheming in order to like create conflicts and stuff, that was fine, I guess. The stuff with the Frost Giants, all of it, it was all right, I would say. Not really one of my favorite plots, not the most, just a lot of stuff happening. Most of it was just all right, I would say, and I don't really care for it too much, but I would just say all right plot. I'm going to say 3 to 5. In terms of the characters, I think that Thor was pretty good as like this character at the start. He is very much like in an antagonistic position of wanting to start a war. I think that was good. So, and then he ends up making it to Earth. And then I do kind of wish that we did see, once again, like him maybe explore, again, with the Earth shenanigans, maybe we could have had more of that, where Thor does kind of like show a bit more of a selfish side to him. And yeah, just because he does seem like pretty, for all intents and purposes, like he doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel like he changes too much between the start and the end of the film, where it's like at first he just kind of is bloodthirsty, I guess. He's war hungry, and then towards I don't know, just over the course of the film, I guess he like bonds with the humans, or the mortals, I guess. And yeah, but it didn't really feel like he changed too much, to be honest, but it was fine, I would say, Thor as a protagonist. Loki, I did not really like. I think Loki is definitely better like later on in Avengers as a villain. I think he was a better villain there. I think that in the actual Loki TV series, he's a lot more interesting. So seeing him now in this film, he feels like really basic, like a really, not like a basic villain, but very much just like, I know what's going to come with this character, which I think that Loki in general is like a fantastic character. And so just seeing him in the state now, where I know like what is going to be of him in the future, I think that it's just right now, I'm just definitely not as good as he's going to be later on. So, but even so, Loki, he's fine. He's not really, it doesn't feel like he's like really scheming or, I mean, it feels like just anything. He's just doing manipulations and stuff in this film instead of actual, like, I don't know, he doesn't feel as mischievous as he is in like later iterations, I guess. So yeah, Loki's fine, but I definitely think that he's going to be better later on. Jane, another just love interest of a Marvel character that I don't care for. The entire science crew, they were fine. I think Eric was good. I did like the bar scene between him and Thor. Darcy is meant to be some comic relief, didn't work too well. There was, let's see here, who else? Coulson, I liked Agent Coulson, he was cool. We did actually get Hawkeye in the film. He does appear in this film, which was nice to see. He doesn't really do much. He just kind of like has a bow and arrow aimed at Thor in one scene, and that's it, and he doesn't end up really doing anything. There is the guy that, I forgot his name, but he is the dude that's like the head of Hydra. He's first revealed in this film. You don't know yet that he is part of Hydra, but yeah, he was in this, which was cool to see. Nick Fury's in a cameo. Odin was good. I did like Odin. Like I very much like the shouting scenes in this film. Those were pretty good, I would say. Thor's mother, don't really care for. Thor's friends, I also don't really care for, like the warriors that just kind of go with him to Jotunheim, and then by the end of the film, they try to help them out against the Destroyer. Don't really care for them too much. Overall, the characters, I'm just going to give like a 5.5. I'm going to say they're decent characters. You know, they're fine. They got their moments, I would say, but none of them are too great, I would say. So just decent. Some of them are good. Yeah, just decent characters all around, I'm going to say. In terms of the settings, I really did not like Jotunheim. First of all, it looked way too dark. Like, absolutely, I could not see anything during the Jotunheim scene. It was really difficult. Yeah, very much difficult to see anything. So, didn't like that aspect of it. Asgard itself was all right. It does feel, I don't know, it looked a bit off at times. Especially, I'll get into this with action, but like the film visually, it looks all right, I guess. But in terms of like, it was fine. I would say Asgard itself, it's like, I guess, cool. It does feel like very flashy, I would say. And Earth itself, it took place in, I think, New Mexico, and that I like the desert areas just because I was actually able to see what was going on. But yeah, the actual facility that Shield set up in order for the hammer, that was all right, I guess. The hospital, not really too many settings really to speak of in this film. I will just go I'll go at a 5.5, I guess, for the settings, because Asgard, it was cool. I guess it was pretty unique. And yeah, the Shield setup area, that was also pretty good, I would say. But overall, just like a 5.5 for the settings. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but I'm going to be harsh with it. In terms of the action, yeah, it looked a bit off, definitely. This is not like really prime Marvel where the action looks really good, I would say. This is definitely, it did look like it was cool action, I would say, but it did look a bit off at times. Definitely the character, it felt like kind of wonky with the movements of certain characters and stuff. But yeah, definitely Thor does get better action later on in the franchise. Right now, it's like him, there's less lightning, it feels like, and more of just him, like, swinging the hammer and stuff, which it looks fine. The Destroyer was pretty cool, I would say, but it didn't get to, most of the Destroyer sequences was just, like, him walking around, shooting a laser, and it didn't feel like there was a lot of real action. It was more, like, the Destroyer didn't really get in a lot of fights. It was just, like, it being a threat that other characters were trying to get away from or try to defeat, but couldn't end up defeating. So, the Destroyer was cool. Thor with the hammer, that was good, I guess. Loki was all right, he had like his scepter thing, which it was fine. The action I would give probably like a 5.5 decent action, but yeah, not really anything that compares to later on in the MCU, I would say. In terms of the worst thing, I'm going to say the Jotunheim scene, just because like it was fine, like the actual fight scene itself, but I just couldn't see anything. It was like, I'm going to get the score sheet out, because I don't usually like to complain about this, because I always think like maybe it's my fault that maybe I'm like viewing it with the lights on or so. Like I always watch movies with my light on in my room, but I sometimes, like in this case, I had to shut the light off just because it was so difficult to see the screen, like it was so pitch black. And so I usually watch during the day, so I'm thinking maybe the light from outside, it's like shining in, and so it's making it difficult to see. So yeah, but in this case, even with like me turning the lights off and I didn't shut the windows, maybe I should have, but yeah, it was like really difficult to see. So I thought that was pretty bad. I'm going to say the Jotunheim scene, because again, I just really could not see anything. So besides that, I would also maybe say, this isn't the worst thing, but again, like the middle section, it doesn't feel like a lot really happens. It feels like stuff happens in Asgard, but on Earth, it basically feels like besides like maybe some bonding moments between the characters of Thor and like the Science crew, it's like he tries to retrieve his hammer, but that's it. Like after that, it's like by that point, the Destroyer shows up to defeat Thor. It's like nothing else happens except for Thor attempting to get his hammer back. So yeah, in terms of the best thing, I will say, I'm not sure. I did like, I'm trying to think. Nothing really comes to mind. There's certain characters I did like a lot. Like again, Thor, he's like a good protagonist, I would say. Seeing Agent Coulson again, that was pretty cool. Eric, I think I liked him the best out of all of the Science crews. So certain characters I would say were pretty good, but yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll say this. I'll say the best thing was probably just those three characters. I would say Thor, Agent Coulson again, and Eric. I would say that they were my favorite characters from the film, and I would say that I also like the shouting scenes. The shouting scenes were also pretty good. Maybe I will just give it to the shouting scenes. I would say the shouting scenes were. I'm going to give it, fine, I'll give it to the shouting scenes. I'm going to say the shouting scenes were 7 out of 10, where Odin gets upset at Thor, where Loki gets upset at Odin. I like those shouting scenes. I would give those 7 out of 10, because I can't think of anything else. So, and I don't want to say, like, these specific characters I'm going to give, like, I could do that, I guess, but it feels kind of pick and choosy. Like, if there was, like, one specific character, then I would maybe say, like, okay, this one specific character was, like, amazing or great or something like that, and I would give the score to that. But saying, like, okay, I'm going to take all the cast of characters, these characters, like 1, 2, 3, in the case I said 3 here, but like just picking certain characters, and then for those combined characters, like giving a score for those specific characters I like, that feels kind of like something I don't really want to do. So anyway, extra notes, I already mentioned, it was too dark in the Jotunheim scenes, and so I did not really like that. Not even just that, but there were like, the opening scene I think actually was not even of, the opening scene was like of the Science crew. It's like they're driving in the dark, and I could not see anything in that scene. So that was not the first like 20 minutes to half hour of the film. It's like there is a lot of dark scenes that it is just very difficult to see what is going on. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. All right, so it ends up coming out to exactly a 5.5, which would be decent, and I think I'd probably give it like between a 5.5 to a 6. I think I'll be. I'll be generous. I'm not even going to give it a 6, but I'm just going to call it between a 5.5 to a 6. I would say it was between decent and above average. I definitely did enjoy it. I'm thinking maybe I should just be harsh with it. Fine, I'll be harsh with it. I'm just going to call it a 5.5. I'm going to say it was a decent film. If I let it marinate, maybe it'll get a bit better, but for now, I'm just going to say decent film. Another, definitely in terms of the last few MCU films, I would say that the last few were probably better. I would say this is a bit of a dip in quality in terms of the MCU films that we've been seeing recently. What were the last few? I think Iron Man 2, I rated that decently positively. Even X-Men Origins, which I went into with, that helped, that I went in with low expectations because I never saw that one before. What was before that? I think we had Iron Man, Punisher Warzone. Punisher Warzone, I think I gave like a 5 to a 5.5. I don't remember what I gave that one, but yeah, overall this one decent film, 5.5. I'm going to give it, and yeah. So that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's leave it at that.